Good evening and welcome to the October 22nd regular meeting of the Edina School Board. We do have a quorum this evening. First on the agenda is to approve the minutes. We had a regular meeting on September 24th, a special meeting October 9th. Need a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any additions or corrections to the minutes as written? All those in favor of approving the minutes as written, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. We have two additions or modifications to tonight's agenda. Can I get a motion, please, to insert item M as in Mary, which is the partnership with Stanford University. And also, we will be striking the co-branded website item.
Letter E.
E? Want to insert it as E?
No, it's letter E is what we're dropping.
Okay, letter E is what we're dropping. Can I get a motion?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded to insert item M and remove item E. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving those modifications to tonight's agenda, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The agenda has been modified. Rick, could you walk us through the agenda for tonight's
I
meeting,
certainly
please?
will. We have a variety of presentations, both on our Kids Voting Initiative, which is a partnership between the district and several community organizations. We'll have a presentation from Concord Elementary, and students and staff are here to join us. Some reports that are coming forward include our financial audit from last year, the 2011-12 year. We do also have our enrollment projections, class size, facility information. This is an annual 5-year projection out. We'll hear more about that. We'll do our monthly strategic plan update, talking more about e-learning 2, or squared, I should say, and our efforts in closing the gap. We have a variety of personnel, a variety of consent agenda items, I should say, including gifts under our action items. Again, we'll be approving the audit. We have a master agreement with the Edina Professional Association for support staff. We'll be looking at a variety of policies for revisions that the board looked at in October, also some new policies, and then at the end we'll have some informational updates. Included in that informational update will be the background information as relates to responding to Unite Edina 273. They were joined us in September, and we were to respond to them, and so we have some points of clarification for them, and that would conclude the board agenda for tonight.
Thank you, Rick. Any requests for members of the audience to speak?
Not this evening.
Thanks, Julie. Next up, we have our kids voting presentation. Welcome.
We have Julie Rogers-Baskin and Katie Quinn. Katie's a senior at our high school and have been working hard on a vote that's just around the corner, and we welcome them tonight.
Hi, thanks for having us. So I'm Katie Quinn, and I'm a senior at Edina High School, and with me today is Julie Rogers-Bascom. Julie coordinates service learning at all of the Edina schools, and she is also the director of Kids Voting Edina. So today I'm here to tell you about a very cool project that I'm lucky to be a part of. It's called Kids Voting Edina. And Kids Voting Edina is a nonpartisan joint effort of Edina Public Schools, and along with many sponsors like the Community Education Services, the City of Edina, the Ed Fund, the Community Foundation, the Chamber, and the League of Women Voters Edina, and a few others too. So during the next 3 weeks, Edina teachers are going to be focusing on getting their students ready for the polls. Students are going to be learning about what makes a democracy, what are some issues on the actual voting process, and why in fact we vote. Another cool thing about the curriculum is that the students actually get to see the ballot before they go to the polls, so they'll be very prepared and they're going to have a fun time doing it as well.
Good evening. While I say a few words, Katie's going to pass out a little, an example of what a elementary school kids voting lesson would look like. Please don't turn it over. It will be flashed up here for the rest of you to see. I'm going to ask that you vote yes or no for the following items. Now, I know some of you might have some questions, but right now my precinct worker hat is on, so I can't answer any questions about the ballot. So those of you in the audience, kids, you too, you can look up there and see what would you vote for? School, yes or no? Recess, yes or no? Ice cream, yes or no? Homework, yes or no? Or television, yes or no? You may now turn over your ballot. So this gives you a little bit more information. So if you were voting on recess and you voted yes, if you voted yes, it might have read recess would be replaced by 20 minutes of sit-ups and push-ups. Clearly, we need to know more information about this ballot. Some of the questions that might happen in the classroom are, did you notice a difference between ballot A and ballot B? Another question might be, did you change your vote after you saw ballot B? These are all questions to get students, even at a very young age, to ask critical questions and to think about what they're voting for.
So after students have learned all of this information, they're going to go home and together with their parents, they're going to make a trip out to the polls. And from 4 to 8 p.m. on election night, which is November 6th, a lot of volunteers are going to be helping the students actually fill out their ballot. And it's really cool because students and their parents actually get to be voting on the exact same candidates and the exact same issues. So it's kind of like a big family activity. And also, this is the third year that we have run Kids Voting Edina. And in our first year, almost 50% of all students voted in the Kids Voting election. So that's great. Another part of Kids Voting Edina that I'm really excited about is that there will also be a poll set up just for the Edina High School students on election day from 7 to 8:25 a.m. in the morning. So right before they go to class, if high schoolers are feeling like they're a little too cool to go with their parents to the polls, they get to cast their kids voting vote before school. So according to research, communities that have participated in kids voting have increased their overall voter turnout by about 3 to 5%, with the 18 to 24-year-old voter turnout increasing up to 14%, so that's huge. By participating in projects like Kids Voting Edina, we can be sure that when it comes time for these young Edina students, when it comes time for them to vote, and they turn 18, they'll know exactly how to be an active participant in their community and getting their voice heard. So although these votes actually don't count in the official election and don't actually count, we are going to tally them up and report them to the schools and the media, so it'll be kind of a big deal, and we'll get to see who wins and see if it kind of mirrors the election that actually occurs. So what we are doing is we're trying to generate just an overall excitement about voting in young kids in Edina. And we want this involvement in their community to carry on into their adulthood. And we kind of want this to spark some more involvement all the way through their lives. I know I'm excited to cast my vote because I'm actually not 18 yet. But when I am, thanks to Kids Voting Edina, I'll know exactly how to vote.
I wanted to read to you a few teacher and volunteer reflections of response. One parent commented, "I feel that any exposure to civics at an early age is beneficial for lifelong learning. I also believe that this program encourages parents to get more involved in teaching their children about the process of voting and the importance of having a voice in what happens in our country." A teacher wrote, "The students were very excited about going to vote. We had some great discussions about the campaign and election process as we read the kid who ran for president. They were more engaged in the learning, knowing that they would be having an opportunity to vote themselves." Now this sort of program doesn't happen in a community unless we have other partnerships. I'm really thrilled to say that we partnered with the City of Edina, with Community Education Services, Edina Ed Fund, the Edina Community Foundation, Connecting with Kids, the League of Women Voters Edina, the Chamber of Commerce, and Jerry's Food, and some other partners. This is an example of when we talk about all for all, this is an example. All kids can participate in this. Well, I hope that those of you who are listening, those of you in the audience, I hope that you remember to take your kids to the poll, because there will be a place for them to cast their vote from 4 to 8 p.m. at all the different at all 20 polls in Edina. Thanks very much. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Very well
Julie and
done.
Katie,
Thank
thank you very much.
Next up, we have our 2000 Tech Referendum and Impact on Learning. Concord coming to present,
Ask
Rick?
Principal Rick Sandsted and his team to come forward, and you can find out more about the good news happening at Concord Elementary.
We brought a large contingent of future voters with us, so I may have them come up in shifts as we kind of go through. And as a former government teacher, it's kids voting a good thing, and our connection, I didn't know that they were going to go before us tonight, so kind of makes sense that we're all on the same night, because ours is really a reflection of last year's election and then or referendum, and how that's impacting our classrooms in our community today. And so really talking about from the ballot box to the classroom, and now we're going back to the ballot box again with kids voting, so this is a fun event. A little bit of background, and then we're going to introduce our crew here and have them come up, and they're going to share some things with you here this evening. Last fall, voters approved a technology referendum that again, it's important that we have an informed community, and again, the kids voting piece, helping connect the dots here tonight. We had a chance, voters approved that and have entrusted us as a school community with those resources. And last spring, in our I-Squared initiative, staff had a chance to submit grant proposals. And so we have some staff here that were a result of that energy and excitement that came out of the technology referendum last fall. Over the summer, and even as we continue this fall, continue to make sure staff are trained with the tools to be successful when the learning hits the kids. So this fall really is the implementation of some of these pieces, and knowing that will continue to be moving forward as we move through the school year. So with some introductions, if we can introduce Tracy Purdy. I don't know if you just want to stand up for now, and then I think you're first up, though. So let's have Tracy Purdy and Anna Johns and Barrett Dexheimer come up, and then if you want to get your slides ready. And then also Christy Ardinger, if you want to say hi, and Phoebe Zamoff and Eason Jones, who are now third graders. We had the October school board meeting as a Concord presentation, so we had to recruit some of our alumni from second grade to come back and share some of the information. And then Mrs. Donna Ersted and Logan Fiol and Vivian Kirshner are here. And Logan's a second grader, also a first grade alum, and Vivian, who's a current first grader. So we're excited to have them with us this evening. And so really want to just share with you, the board, and with the community about how the tech referendum dollars are impacting kids at Concord today. So I'll turn it over to Tracy.
I'm going to let the kids do all the talking. So I've got Barrett Dexheimer and Anna Johns with me. Barrett's in first grade and Anna is in my class in fourth grade, and we have buddy classes, first and fourth grade, and so this was a little project we did.
This year we are using technology with our buddies. The first thing we did was a get to know you activity. We introduced our buddies. Then we made a cartoon with a program called Go Animate. Here is our cartoon.
I'd like you to meet my buddy Anna. She is in fourth grade in Mrs. Purdy's class.
Hi, I'd like you to meet my buddy Barrett. He is in first grade and in Mrs. Sowell's class.
Anna's favorite color is blue.
So is Barrett's. Barrett loves math. It is his favorite subject.
Anna's favorite thing to do in school is reading and writing. Outside of school, she loves swimming.
Barrett's favorite thing to do out of school is hockey.
Actually, we both really like hockey.
I am glad we will get to know each other better this year.
We used our Chromebooks to make this. Chromebooks are laptops that only have the internet or Chromebooks on them. I think that using the Chromebooks has helped me as a learner because it makes me excited to do more writing. It makes me work a lot harder because I know that my work will be seen by a lot of people. We use Google Apps. We do iExcel to practice our math. make digital portfolios, and we will continue to work with our buddies, creating digital stories.
Thanks. Anna does have a Chromebook here with us too, just so you can kind of see what it is. That they're just lightweight, easy to use laptop computers that have been a lot of fun for me as a teacher as well. So, pass it on to Christy.
We'll navigate. We do have, so as a part of the I-Squared initiative, we do have about 60 Chromebooks and 60 iPads at Concord that are being used in first, second, third, fourth grades, and also in our special education department. And the Chromebook, I think we didn't bring an iPad with us necessarily, but, or wait, we do have a couple. So, but I think most people have probably seen an iPad. The Chromebook, and you can see the fun case that comes with a second grade version of an iPad, and a little more kid friendly. But I'll let Christy and Phoebe and Eason take it from here.
Hi, I'm Christy Ardinger. I teach second grade, and this is Phoebe Zamoff and Eason Jones. They were in my class last year, so I felt like we're just kind of getting into them this year, so these guys were really into it last year. So they're going to show you a couple of the things that they did. One of the apps we used during language arts was sock puppets. So I have just a short little video to show you, and then they're going to talk about it.
I liked comprehension on the iPads to do book projects. It was way more fun than just doing it on a regular computer. It helps your imagination, and it's more fun instead of writing it just on a piece of paper.
So that was one of the apps we used.
My favorite thing for language arts was the book groups, and the sock puppets made it more fun.
I really enjoyed it. It was really fun. I really have nothing to say. It was really fun.
All right, then in science, we had a unit on plants, and so the kids kept a journal about their plants on this app called iDiary. So, which one of you wanted to talk about?
My,
We all planted grass and alfalfa last year. We wrote in these little journals on the iPad. It was really fun.
So, and they got a chance to, once they were on there, they could type it in, they could take a picture, and then they could write different things that they wanted to. And then the last thing we wanted to talk about was during math.
One of the apps that I really liked was Bingo Bugs, and it helped me learn my addition and subtraction facts quickly.
One of my favorites was called Cash Cow. It helps us learn how to add our money and subtract our money.
Name That Number helps you with varieties of numbers to add and subtract and multiply and divide them.
And then the last thing I just wanted to share was what's so great about the iPads is when they do all these different projects, it's an easy way for us to share them with parents, and parents can see these different things and get a much better idea of what's happening during the classroom. So we started a class Twitter account, and a lot of these things just will upload right to our Twitter account then, so it's fun for parents to see.
That's
Any last thoughts?
Thank you.
I have nothing to say.
While our now third graders return to their seat, the other piece that I think is important is sort of that passion for learning, and I know that was part of our, as I saw Mr. Butner, I think, here, and that was one of the pieces of the puzzle, whether it's for staff or kids, is to really help that passion come forward. And for us, the sock puppets might seem, as adults, may not seem all that engaging, but when you're 7 or 8, it's pretty cool. So I'll turn it over to Miss Erstead if we can get to her spot. So here you go.
Hi, I'm Donna Erstad. I teach first grade at Concord. I've brought 2 students with me. One student that's in my class right now, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Vivian Kirschner.
Hi, I'm Logan Fiel.
And Logan was in my class last year, and so he's going to tell you a little bit more about what first graders can do later in the year. So, Vivian, I'm going to let you tell what we did with the Screen Chomp app that I'm going to show.
We counted by 2s and with all kinds of blocks, and we counted back from 50.
And then Screen Chomp is a screencasting app, and then we made a video of it. And then what do we do with the video?
And then we sent it home.
So then the students that didn't yet have the counting by 2 mastered, or the counting backwards by 50 mastered, they could practice it at home with their parents. So just like Christy was saying, it's such an easy thing to share with parents that it was a great thing not only to practice in the classroom, but then to send the videos home for extra practice and independent practice at home. So this was a screencast that we made together as a class. Later in the year, as Logan could tell you, they were making screencasts like this independently or with partners. So I'll play just part of it.
Skip, count by 2s. Skip, count by 2s. Skip, count by 2s. We can count to 40. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 2, 20.
So students can write right on their iPads with their finger or with the tool to draw and to show what they've learned. So now,
the other piece that if you haven't been in a first or kindergarten or first grade classroom recently, a lot of singing going on as part of the learning. And so I don't know if you had a chance to see Mrs. Erstead sing a little bit, but that's also part of the equation of being a kindergarten or first grade teacher.
we use the apps and the iPad to integrate technology across the curriculum. And I like to use the iPad to use digital writing in the classroom and to connect that with all areas of the curriculum. So Logan's going to tell us how we did that in science last year.
So last year in science, we were learning about the animal categories, which were mammals, amphibians, reptiles, and birds, and sometimes I forget. Yeah, fish. The fun part was we got to make the animals look like they're talking. Like we put little speech bubbles on them, so it kind of makes it more funner and cool and stuff. I did reptiles. We went to the photo library on there to get our pictures.
And then Logan, I'm showing yours right now, and then you can pass it back. So this is an example of the app right here, and the piece that was really powerful about this too, when students were working together in partners to write this, is there was a lot of talk about writing, and they were teaching each other about writing at the same time that they were working on their writing. So there was a lot of conversation about, well, I know how to spell that word, or, oh, we forgot a period, or don't forget that capital letter, or I see that word on the word wall. So they were really teaching each other at the same time. So we've learned a lot about how to use the iPad to integrate with not only all of the areas of the curriculum, but also with digital writing. Thanks so much for listening to us.
Thank you.
And the last part is really that this wouldn't be possible without, and I want to make sure we give everybody a round of applause for their work here today. That this really would not be possible without a variety of partnerships. And I know our kids voting people had a chance to recognize the community partnerships that really take place. And I think between the community and the referendum approval, our media specialist at Concord, Lori Holland, who's been instrumental in this work, Steve and the DMTS staff, Molly, and then also the piece that I think is important in the referendum is making sure that the teachers have the time to develop those tools. Because I think sometimes that's a missed opportunity that we just, these tools appear and we just expect people to know everything about them. And so I think that's an important piece of this puzzle. And the summer work, the summer training that happened as part of that technology grant process was important. Also the parents and Concord PTO for supporting. We didn't get every grant that we applied for, but working with our PTO, we were able to supply some more tools to teachers and to kids. And then the other piece is I think the joy that comes from working with new tools and new equipment that just happens. And Donna, Tracy, Christy are examples of that at Concord. And I know as a parent around the district, I know that's happening at other schools as well, and just the excitement that's generated. So I don't know if we can give a round of applause to our students and our staff today. And then wanted to take time if you have any questions for students or staff.
Questions?
Just thank you for being the risk takers and for going forward.
Thanks, everybody, for coming out.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Next up, we have our audit report.
Mr. Chair, we're still waiting for one auditor who is in another district at this time on his way here. Would it be okay if we went to the enrollment and projections report first?
Absolutely. You're up then anyhow.
Good evening. We are here to share the 2012-13 enrollment projections, ADM, class size, and facility report. So the first thing we'll look at is a change in enrollment from fall 2011 to fall 2012. You'll see at the elementary level we're up 5 students. From last year to this year, middle school we're up 19 students. And the high school has an increase of 53 students. So from a district perspective, we are up 77 students. The difference between at the elementaries, Concord is down 15 from last year. Cornelia would be down 11 from the previous year. Countryside is up 15. Highlands is up 12. Creek Valley is down 6. Normandale is up 12. And then at the middle school, Valley View is up 16, Southview 3, and then as it indicates, the high school 53. When you look at the fall 2012 actual enrollment versus projections, you can see the elementary is above in open enrollment. The largest increases were in grade 1 with 13 over projections in open enrollment, and grade 6 with 12 over projections. Middle school was up in residence in 9th grade, but below in residence projection in the other 3 grades. 7th grade is presently our largest grade at 689 students, followed by grade 10 at 682. High school is up in residence in grade 10 and 11, but down in residence in grade 12. When we get to non-resident students who attend Edina students, just as a reminder to our audience, non-resident students are students who live in the city of Edina, but whose homes are actually in a surrounding school district. Students attending our school through the Choice is Yours program and the regular open enrollment program. The 1,235 open enrolled students represents 14.83% of district enrollment. In 2011-12, open enrollment represented 14.39% of the district enrollment. We had approximately 385 students who applied for open enrollment and met the January 15th deadline. Kindergarten open enrollment is up 14 from projections. If you look at the 5-year enrollment projection, you'll really see somewhat of a very flat growth over the next 5 years. There's some years where we'll actually see a decline in resident growth, and the growth will actually be in non-residents. But as you can see, over the course of the next 5 years, we'll see relatively flat growth. Then if you look at elementary projections by building, the present slide shows if projections play out, Cornelia would have the largest increase in enrollment. Countryside would have an increase. Highlands, a very slight increase, and Concord, Creek Valley, and Normandale will have declines. I'd like to mention at this time also that one of the things we did this past year was we expanded our all-day kindergarten sections from 14 sections to 17 sections. So we went from 336 available spots for all-day kindergarten to 408 if they were all at a 24 maximum. And we have 404 students presently attending all-day kindergarten. All buildings have 3 sections of all-day kindergarten except Cornelia, who due to space capacities only has 2 sections of full day. Also, I would indicate at this time that in the past there's been a concern between what's called racially identifiable, and the definition of that is a racially identifiable school would be a school within a district where the enrollment of protected students, and protected students are identified as students who identify or are identified in the general racial categories of African and Black Americans, Asian Pacific Americans, Chicano Latino Americans, and American Indian Alaskan Natives, or multi-race. And again, where the enrollment of protected students at a school within a district is more than 20% above the enrollment of protected students in the entire district for the grade level served. So when we looked at Cornelia in relation to the other 5 elementary schools, last year we were at 19.4. This year we are right now at about 15.4, and that was due to more families choosing to take advantage of some of the choice opportunities, both at Normandale and at Highlands. And then finally, if you look at the secondary projection, you will see that we're seeing a little growth at Southview, potentially a little decline at Valley View over the next 5 years, and then continued growth at the high school. 2 years ago at this time, though, we were projecting double-digit growth for all 3 secondary buildings, so this looks a little more manageable.
I don't think that mic's working well tonight.
All right, I'll try this one. So as we look at the enrollment update, October 1st enrollment, that is the key time that we also take that information and then convert it into what's called average daily membership, which is how the school district is funded. If a student moves into the district mid-year, we don't get, they're counted as a half, for example, or if we have a student that leaves mid-year or partial year. The state equates, obviously, proportion or prorates that funding or that counting of that student, and so we have to take the information on our first of the month counts and project average daily membership. So here you see for the preliminary budget that the board approved in June, we had estimated actually in a total of 8,389 average daily membership. And now based on the October 1st enrollment, 8,381, or just 8 a.m. Or students off, which is very close, and it's much closer than we were last year. So we're pleased. There's some variance in grade levels and in between, and that I will do in terms of process, in terms of budget, right now that would estimate to about $150,000 roughly. However, we will use November 1st's count also and combine it with October 1st, because now as part of the process I look at this monthly and take the enrollment body counts and update the average daily membership projections. So we'll use a couple more months worth of data before doing the final budget for 11-12. And so this may change again after November 1st rolls around, and then also continue to take those monthly counts and then use those counts through the beginning of January to project forward for 13-14 budget planning. This is the projection model that we use actually has 17 different ways to calculate the enrollment projection models. I don't have all that graphed out. However, I did graph 5 of them out, kind of a high and low and some middle range ones. We're using the red line. We are being more conservative in our approach. After last year, we were a little bit off. 2 years ago, we had an influx of resident enrollment, partially because of the economy and also the federal stimulus dollars for new homeowners, and that ended up being a blip. And in the enrollment projection models, sometimes you have to adjust accordingly if it's going to be a one-time sort of thing. We are still seeing resident growth, as Mary reported. However, it's not to the level that it was 2 years ago. So we're still being conservative with those projections. I use this for average daily membership projections, but we also used it for the resident enrollment projections that Mary just talked about, and the overall student projections. So then we also, specifically at our, all schools, but our secondary schools have been looking very closely at capacity. And what does that look like? Southview's been updated because we did open the addition this fall, and additional classrooms and capacity there. And we've updated our projections in terms of functional capacity or maximum capacities. We do have multiple types of capacity, so you can see the varying ranges with these updated enrollment projections in the building. At the bottom part of the slide, for each of the school, you can see the variance from the type of capacity to the current enrollment. And basically between all of these, and I'll go through them quickly, we're approaching by the end of 5 years the functional capacity, but and what the functional capacity is the Wold study assumes in the middle schools 6 out of 8 periods a classroom is used, because currently that's what our schedule is. The district functional capacity assumes a 7 out of 8, which is what we could move to in the future. And then, as you will note on all slides, the maximum capacity for both is very, very similar. And again, you notice for Valley View on those functional capacities, there still is more room there than there would be at Southview. And at the high schools, where you really see that functional capacity as more of our students are moving into that upper secondary level, tight, but still can make it at this point in time again. And I think the good news is we're very close in projections, and also that we're slowly growing, slow and steady. So summary statements, the elementary school enrollment is projected to increase by 26 students over the next 5 years. The projections suggest that 2 of the elementary schools will be in declining enrollment, and 3 elementary schools, including Normandale, will stay relatively flat, and Cornelia will experience growth. The secondary enrollment is projected to increase by 80 students in the next 5 years. We just saw the impact on potential impact on capacity. K-12 total growth is projected to increase by 106 students during the next 5-year period, and we'll continue the administration. We will continue to monitor the enrollment and the projections using the enrollment projection model, and monitoring the building capacities. Are there any questions?
Can you guys just share with us and the audience what goes into making up these numbers in terms of the projecting forward?
5
Are
years.
you looking at resident data or?
For the average daily membership, it is both. That's our total, our body counts here that we are serving, and also tuition students and that kind of thing. And it's 5 multiple years worth of history. We can use the model in multiple ways, save it under different names. And so we did isolate just the resident enrollment, not average daily membership, but our resident count as of October 1st, and make projections using 5 years worth of history on that. And that's where we got the projection information that we had earlier in the presentation. Some of this information where we separate out resident from the non-resident enrollment. But then when it comes to the budgeting and the average daily membership, we combine all the students together to get that information because we're funded based on the number of students we're serving. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Just to add to that, do we think that there's any possibility with the what is it, like 26% of our residents being older? Do we think that we'll see an influx of younger families as these homes turn over that would cause our projections to suddenly increase?
And that's what we were thinking 2 years ago, certainly because of a combination of that along with the economy and the prices of homes and the federal stimulus dollars. At the same time, we also had the demographic study, and that was part of Hazel Reinhardt's discussion because of that, and the properties that are affordable coming available in Edina, and Edina being a place that people want to move to. However, what we saw a year ago in the projections is it didn't come quite as rapidly, and so therefore we're being more conservative. So certainly could continue to come, but not at the rate it did 2 years ago would be what I would say, because right now we are behind the lowest projection from the demographic study 2 years ago.
Thank you.
There's no questions? Thank you both.
Thank you, Mary and Margot.
We'll jump to our strategic plan update. Dr. Dressen?
Again, I'm going to just kind of give the board a quick update on how we are progressing with our strategic plan. The plan that we put before that, again, is simplified our mission statement for all for all, and just, again, moving from a range of remarkable. We're not going to be ordinary, we're not going to be perfect, we're just going to be remarkable in our work. It's really building on saying what's the next United Public Schools for 2015 and beyond. So the work we're doing is really helping us get to a conclusion point of 2015. Again, we're taking what we currently do with great success and building on those possibilities as we continue to study and explore what's possible. We have 3 major commitments, and I'm not going to go into detail of them, but I do want you to be aware of that we're working hard on the closing the gap. Again, this is our achievement gap as well as our opportunity and access gap. Making sure that all students have that good, fair shot to be successful at the All for All. We've talked already about the kindergarten options program at our work session, continuing to provide more options for families with kindergartners. We've expanded that option and continue to explore that going forward. You'll learn more about e-learning squared, which is our personal device efforts, a little bit later. Also, our second focus area is around continuous and comprehensive educational programming. Mary mentioned already about the racially identifiable school. We're looking for balancing our elementary schools racially, and it's an area that we'll be studying in 2013 and 14. Secondary program study, we'll soon be hearing an update on that from our administrative team as they gather data. They will be expected to have some recommendations brought forward early in 2013. Next year, we'll be looking at an elementary and early childhood program study for 13-14. Under partnerships, we're working hard on a facility improvement. The board will later today approve the ECC being part of our maintenance facility plan. We do have a 10-year plan out there for maintenance improvements. This will begin next summer, but we're also moving quickly on a facility advisory committee. Again, remind staff and community members who are interested in serving in this advisory function to help us plan our future to make sure you contact the district office or go to the website, and we will be considering that committee and bring it to the school board for approval in November. When we look at some of our one-time funding, this is an action items the board is going to be take later tonight. We do feel that we're in position that we can access some of our one-time funds because we have a strong fund balance, and none of these funds will be something that we move forward in 2013-14. So we're taking the available fund balance and we'll be driving it down by $221,000, still well within the comfort range for a strong fund balance for our school district. There have already been some one-time funds that we've approved within the budget around strategic planning, around some work on literacy interventions and scholarshiping for our kindergarten program and readiness programming. These have already been implemented. Again, these are for the upcoming year only. We have a fund that we're looking at about $180,000 to close the gap. This will focus strong on our math programming, and so we'll be looking at increasing the amount of time we provide students to get math, those students who are at risk of not being successful, and also helping us close the gap by, we project, about 10% when it comes down to the aggregate scoring. Under the strategic data analysis, we are in the process or hope to finalize the hiring of a strategic data analysis coordinator. This person will help us with some of the data work, especially in our major areas of study, secondary program study, closing the gap area. Those are two of the big studies going on. This person's position would conclude at the end of this calendar year. The third area is in the e-learning square. This was the bring your own device. The board has heard presentations from Steve Butner, our director of technology, around this. We're looking at a one-time cost of $205,000, and if the board does approve that tonight, we'll be able to move forward with that planning. We'll soon also hope to have an agreement with a local vending company that will allow us to provide access for a piloted grade level of 9th grade students to access these computers and improve their learning. We're also looking at adding special service staffing, a total of about $130,000. This again is to meet legal requirements for students that were above our projected targeted number of students, both in the area of special services and English language learner program. When we look at all the funds rolling forward, we do have some funds that we won't be accessing that we think will allow us to minimize the impact on the fund balance. We are requesting about $575,000 in one-time expenditures. Within our budget, we have about $350,000 that we are not using for a variety of reasons. So the impact of this request is about $221,000. The board has met in a work session in October earlier this month, and then prior to this regular meeting, met again to talk a little bit about it, but I'd open the floor at this time for further questions that the board might have and any feedback from lead team members who might be able to support these requests.
Any questions? Comments? We've gone through this several times. That's why we're seeing some long faces here. Anybody? No? Okay.
Thank you very much. We will again implement this starting tomorrow. The lead team meets to begin the implementation process, and the key again is that as we build our budget for 2013-14, these funds and these initiatives will not be part of the planning process. We would have to build, if we do want to retain them, we'd have to build them into the planning process.
Thank you, Rick. We'll jump back to our audit report.
Thank you. Just as we assess on the instructional side annually how our students are doing on the financial side, we annually assess how we are doing through our audit. And we have Bill Lauer and Jackie Hagel here from MMKR to report the results of the 11-12 audit. Want to thank them and their team, along with Jim Gilligan, the controller, and the business services staff for their work throughout the year, and specifically from June on. It does take a lot of work. It's a good process to go through. We learn, it's a partnership. We learn what other districts are doing, what we're doing very well, what we can improve upon, what new information is out there that we need a heads up on. And so it really is good information for us to be able to continue to do our work and move forward. And with that, I'll introduce Bill.
Thank you, Margot. Superintendent, members of the board, thank you for making time in your busy agenda for me this evening. The first thing...
Can you raise the mic just a hair so we can catch it?
Yeah, we can hear.
Okay.
Thanks.
Is that better? The first thing I need to do is remind you, as the body that is charged with governance of the district, what our role is as auditor and how that differs from that of management. The primary document that you received, the school district's annual financial report, the responsibility for the data and the disclosures in that document rests with management. Our job is to come out, perform our audit, and provide the opinion that goes in the front of that document as to whether it fairly states the district's financial position and the results for the year under audit. In addition to that, because the district earns more than $500,000 in federal awards, you are subject to a separate single audit of those federal awards expenditures. In both of those audits, we're required to test controls and compliance. In addition to that, you're subject to a separate audit of compliance with Minnesota laws and regulations. And finally, because the board has elected not to keep extracurricular student activity accounts under board control, there's a separate report issued on the receipts and disbursements for those activities, and we look at internal controls and compliance with those accounts as well. As far as the results for the current year, I'm happy to say we are once again able to provide the district a clean opinion on your basic financial statements without exception. This is the highest opinion that we can give. We also give a clean opinion on your schedule of federal awards expenditures. As far as internal control and compliance is concerned, we had no internal control or compliance findings on either the district financial statement audit or the federal single audit. We did have one finding to report on your Minnesota legal compliance audit, and that is 2 of the 25 disbursements that we selected for testing were not paid within 35 days of the receipt for goods or services or the invoice for goods or services as required by state statute. This was also an issue in the district's prior year audit. And this is a very common finding for our districts. There's some conflicting priorities at play here. You do have good controls in place that require your invoices to be sent out to the buildings to be approved for payment by the individuals that receive those goods or services, and also to be approved by the board before they're spent, before the checks are cut. So getting that done within 35 days can sometimes be difficult, and you had 2 of the 25 that we tested were not paid within that 35-day window. As far as the student activities are concerned, we did give a clean opinion on your student activity, cash receipts and disbursements. Just a reminder, we only opine on the recorded receipts. You don't have all of the controls that you do at the district level for those individual student activity accounts. So we only audit the recorded receipts, which we do mention in our internal control letter as well. We did have 1 compliance finding here. 2 of the 10 receipts that we tested were not deposited in a timely manner as defined by the manual, the MAFA manual for accounting for these student activity accounts, which states that if you hold those receipts over a weekend, they're not considered to be deposited in a timely manner. It does make it very difficult when you have activities going on a Friday to comply with that. Again, one of the most common findings that we do see at in our clients. Moving on then to some of the financial information for the district. This graph shows a 10-year history of the statewide unrestricted fund balance as a percentage of operating expenditures. This is based on the state's calculation for statutory operating debt. It's going to be a little different than some of the percentage we talk about when we look at your funds, but it's the only real statewide benchmark that we have for this. At the end of the 2011 fiscal year, statewide districts had about 20.8% of their annual operating expenditures in their unrestricted fund balance at year end. By comparison, your district had just under 16%. That ratio at the end of 2012 for your district was up to about 16.4%. Moving on to your governmental fund information. In your governmental funds, excluding your building capital project fund, which we exclude because it's varies so much from district to district. In the remaining governmental funds, you took in about $109.7 million, which converts to about $13,138 on a per pupil served basis. You spent about $3 million, or roughly 2.9% more in these funds than the year before. Just some things to point out where you differ as compared to the statewide and metro area average. You'll see the very strong tax base that you have here in Edina generates more property taxes than the average Minnesota district due to the operating referendums that you've had approved here. You see less state aid than average. Some of that is due to some of the categorical aids that are based on the number of children that are approved for free and reduced lunches that generates more aid for more socioeconomically challenged districts. And also, you do have a very strong community service program. You can see they're much higher community service revenues than the statewide or metro area average. From last year to this year, your total revenue per ADM increased by about $291. The majority of that was in the general fund, which was about $234 per student higher. And most of that came in two areas. Your general education aid was about $1.2 million higher than the year before. You had more ADM served this year, and also you got a $50 increase on the general education formula allowance there. And also special education was about $857,000 higher than the year before. And a lot of that had to do with prior year adjustments coming through, and also you underaccrued your receivable for 2011 due to some allowances for tuition adjustments there that came in better, more positively for the district's benefit than you had estimated. On the expenditure side, you spent about $107.5 million in these same funds. That was an increase of 1.4%, or about $1.5 million from the year before. On a per pupil basis, that computes out to $12,882 per student. That was an increase of $105 from the year before. Pretty much all of that, again, was in the general fund, which was $111 per student higher than the year before. Some of the areas of increase there, pupil support services was $75 per student higher, mainly transportation, and particularly special education transportation is the driving force there. Sites and buildings was about $59 per student higher. That was mainly purchase services, repairs, and maintenance. Drilling down within your general funds to the general fund, or within your governmental funds, I should say, to your general fund, your primary operating fund. This graph shows a 10-year history of your financial position in terms of cash and unrestricted fund balance. I really think this graph gives you the best picture of the impact that the tax shift and the change in the metering of state aids has on school districts. The yellow bar there represents your unrestricted fund balance over the last 10 years, and you can see a very stable to increasing trend there, whereas the blue bar represents your cash and investments, and you can see over the last 4 years since 2009 the change in the relationship between fund balance and cash as the state is using these accounting shifts, both the tax shift and the change in timing of when they're paying you their state aids to basically borrow your cash to help balance the state budget. At the end of 2012, you had an unrestricted fund balance in your general fund of $12.2 million, $1.4 million higher than the year before. But your cash and investments, without the aid of your short-term borrowing that you're doing, would have been a deficit of $4.7 million, down $3.6 million from the year before. Most of the change from 2011 to 2012 was because the state again lowered the metering of your state aid payments, paying you less of your estimated aids before June 30, and more the makeup is coming after year end. Here is your little table with your general fund financial position over the last 5 years. You can see the various elements that make up your fund balance. in the general fund. The total fund balance was $12.5 million at the end of the year, an increase of 1.8, and about $300,000 better than projected in your budget. Your unrestricted fund balance as a percent of expenditures here, using all of your general fund expenditures rather than the ones used in the previous calculation, was about 14%. And that represents right around 7 weeks of operations if you spent on an even basis throughout the year. This graph shows your month-end cash balances in the general fund over the last 3 years, the blue line representing 2012. And you can see from this picture, over the last 2 years in particular, you would have had a deficit in cash for much of the year if you hadn't had short-term borrowing outstanding. At the end of 2011, you had $8 million in short-term aid anticipation borrowing outstanding. And at the end of 2012, you have $15 million in aid anticipation just to have enough cash to meet your day-to-day cash flow needs. The largest piece of revenue that you get in the general fund is your general education aid. This table shows the last 5 years of where that basic general education formula allowance has been, and also the allowance for the 2013 year you're operating in now. It does show a very flat allowance, over no increases over 2010 and 2011. You did receive a $50 increase per pupil in 2012 and another $50 increase in 2013. The main reason that got through the legislature was because, one, with the increased amount of short-term borrowing districts are having to do to meet their cash flow needs, there's interest costs with that have to be covered. And also there are mandated increases to your pensions for TERA and PERA rates going up. So part of the reason that this increase for the last 2 years on the table here were approved is to pay for those increasing costs. The thing that drives your general education formula, as well as a number of your other aid formulas, is the number of students that you serve for aid. This graph shows the change in the number of students served by the district over the last 10 years. The blue bar represents the average daily membership. The yellow bar, pupil units. Your district served about 8,307 in terms of average daily membership for 2012, an increase of about 0.5%, or about 44 students. Your district is very unique if you look at your student history here. First of all, most of the first-ring suburb clients that we have been losing student population for a number of years. And the thing that makes your district unique is the amount of gain that you have through the open enrollment, pluses and minuses. You pick up about 900 kids through open enrollment in 2012. And you're also retaining about 96.2% of your resident students that are staying in the district to be served here, which is a very high percentage compared to most metro area districts. Your general fund revenue for 2012 was just under $89 million. You were about $1 million over budget, roughly 1.2%. The largest areas where you're over budget is state aids, which is about $515,000 over budget, mainly in special education aid. And your other local revenues were about $468,000 over budget. This is an area where you budget conservatively. You've got gifts, bequests, student fees, tuitions, non-recurring revenues. And also you did get some tuition rebates from Intermediate District 287 this year for overbillings in prior years that came through your current year revenues. Revenues were about $2.5 million up from the year before. State aids were about $1.9 million of that. Most of that was the increases in general education and special education aids that we discussed earlier. On the expenditure side, you spent about $87 million in the general fund in 2012. Your spending was $507,000 below budget, or about 0.6% under budget. Salaries were actually over budget by about $440,000, mainly in regular instruction and special education. Excuse me, losing my voice here. Mainly in special education and regular education salaries. Purchase service costs were under budget by about $750,000, mainly in the special education area. Expenditures were about 1.3 million, or 1.5% higher than the year before, and almost all of that was in salaries and benefits, where you were about 1.5 million higher than the previous year. Turning to your other district funds. Thank you very much. Excuse me. Turning to your other district funds, the food service fund ended the year with a fund balance of about $481,000, up about 125 from the previous year. That fund balance represents a little over 15% of your annual expenditures in that fund. The community service fund ended the year with a fund balance of about $1.25 million, up 32,000 from the year before. That represents about 17.5% of your annual expenditures in that fund. And from a trend standpoint, this is exactly what we as auditors want to see: very stable fund balances to growing. The key thing we preach to our clients with these funds is making sure that they're self-sufficient, that you're not having to make transfers as an additional drain on the general fund to finance underfunding in these funds. And you've obviously had a very, very stable fund balance over the last 5 years, so you don't have any issues in that regard. And finally, in the front of your financial statement, there are two district-wide financial statements that take all of your fund information, put them into a single presentation, convert it to a full accrual. So it brings in all of your capital assets, long-term bonds outstanding, other long-term liabilities that aren't reported within the funds. Gives you kind of a longer-term perspective of where the district is and how it's changed. At the end of 2012, you had total net assets of about $34.5 million district-wide. It's an increase of $4 million from the year before. The largest increase was in the investment in capital assets net of related debt, which was about $3.8 million higher than the year before. And really that's mainly driven by the relationship between how fast you're paying down your debt versus how fast your capital assets are being depreciated. Your other sections of net assets, your restricted net assets were about $113,000 higher than last year, and your unrestricted about $71,000 higher than last year. So, in summary, very good audit report, clean opinion on the financial statements, no internal control or compliance findings either in the financial statement audit or the single audit. You did have the one recurring issue in Minnesota legal compliance findings, but again, kind of a cost-benefit thing between a couple of different controls there. And finally, general fund remains in sound financial condition. Your total fund balance is about 14% of your annual expenditures. You came very close to budget. You were about $300,000 better off in fund balance than projected in your total budget. That was pretty much everything I had intended to cover. Are there questions? Anything you want me to get into further?
Any questions for the auditors?
I remind the board that the audit review was also given to the Finance and Facility Committee of the board, and they had more of an in-depth
Yes.
conversation. So
You saw 17 slides, we probably saw 2 or 3 times that.
And I would also like to point out that the audit and the presentation will be out on our website under Business Services section this week.
Bill, I've got one question on your second last slide. I know there's a reason for it, but I'm not sure what it is. Can you go back one?
Maybe. I can.
Why did we end up with the long-term debt categorized differently? I see the net assets, the total fund balances jumped to the 72, but then we had the debt for 131 in 12, which is a difference from other years.
Oh, you have some refunding bonds that you issued this year where both the escrow to pay those bonds is sitting in your debt service fund, and because it's a crossover refunding, so those bonds aren't going to be paid until a future year. So until that crossover date, both the money sitting in that escrow account and both bond issues are outstanding. So they'll be inflated until the point in time where you can...
So refinancing.
Yes, where you can call those old bonds.
Great, thank you. Any other questions?
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you very much. We're on to our consent agenda. Get a motion to approve?
So Second.
Moved and seconded to approve our consent agenda. Rick, could you please walk us through?
Pretty straightforward. It's our personnel recommendations, both from the district and community ed services. It's our expenditures payable for October 22nd for this meeting. My performance goals are included in the consent agenda. They focus on 3 different areas. One around student achievement through personalized learning initiatives. So a lot of the study work that's coming out of the strategic plan will be part of my responsibility of carrying that forward, and I'll be measured against that. The second area is around effectiveness and accountability. We're really growing, part of the strategic plan is growing the data side of our work and making sure that we're seeing the progress. A lot of work also at the site level with our leaders and helping them in the implementation of a revised principal evaluation plan, as well as some other strategies. The third area of action relates to maximizing the resources. So again, we're looking at building our office team with the addition of the communications team coming on board, taking a look at workload solutions, trying to look at some balance in our staff work and how we can have our staff work differently, and then growing our communication efforts. So those will be the 3 areas I'll focus on in my annual goals. They'll be reviewed by the HR committee throughout the year and then comes to the full board for a vote in June. The other items include some field trips, and then once again our community supporting us generously with gifts. And that would conclude the consent agenda items.
Thank you, Rick. Any items that anyone would like to have removed or discussed in the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The consent agenda has been approved. First item on the action portion of tonight's meeting is the acceptance of the financial statements for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2012. We just had a report on that. And can I get a motion, please?
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the financial statements for the year ended June 30th, 2012. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the acceptance of the financial statements for the last fiscal year, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is the 2012-13 budget enhancements. Can I get a motion, please?
Moved. Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the budget enhancements. We did have a discussion tonight prior to the meeting and also presentations around this prior. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, we have master agreement with the school district and the Edina Professional Association of Support Staff. Can I get a motion, please?
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the master agreement. Gwen, could you provide us a little background, please?
Yes, we had a very good negotiation session with our EPAS group, which is our clerical group throughout the school district. And as a result of negotiations, we settled on, there are 5 steps in their contract, and for the first 4 steps, they will have a salary increase of 1.15% in year 1 and 1.5% in year 2. For step 5 and longevity, they will receive a 1% increase in year 1 and 1.681% in year 2. And then we had some clarification on what it takes for you to receive longevity, and that means that you have to spend 1 year on step 5 and have at least 9 years of service in the district in order to qualify for longevity. There were no increases on the health insurance for the next 2 years, and the total package is 3.45%, which is within the parameters that were identified. Welcome any questions.
Thank you, Gwen. Any questions, comments? All those in favor of approving the master agreement with the Edina School District and the Edina Professional Association of Support Staff for 2012-14, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is approved. Next item, we have a memorandum of understanding for Edina Public Schools Alternative Compensation Program. Can I have a motion?
Moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Who wants to provide some background? Gwen? Randy?
Yes, I can. This is an addendum in response to MDE's request back in August that we make 2 specific changes to our program. They suggested that the Enhanced Student Learning Goal, the SLGE, not be optional as we had proposed in our plan, and that all financial incentive components equal at least 5% of the total alt compensation. We were slightly less than the 5%. So we've made 4 slight changes through this addendum to the alt comp plan. The first one is that the Enhanced Student Learning Goal would not be considered a formal part of the Edina alt comp program, and that we would reduce the SLGE from $75 or from $100 to $75, and we remove it from the plan and fund it through staff development. We've had about 13 SLGs approved to date, and so the cost to our staff development funds is about $1,000. By removing that as a formal part of the alt comp plan, then that met the suggestion that MDE made that it either be that it not be optional, that either everybody do it or it's not there. The second piece that we changed is we raised the Site Improvement Plan Student Achievement Goal Incentive from $100 to $110, and that met MDE's 5% threshold. We ended up with 5.1% then, I think. The last piece then was for sites that didn't meet their 2011-12 SIP Student Achievement Goal, 50% of the eligible funds would be returned to those sites for staff development this school year. And we would work with those schools and their school improvement process to make sure that however they're using those staff development funds for the year aligns to their school improvement plan. So really those 4 changes, dropping the SLG out of the alt comp plan, funding it through our own professional development at a cost of about $1,000 for the Edina school system, but still allowing teachers to experiment with an SLGE process, and then adjusting the site improvement plan from $100 to $110, meeting the 5% threshold, and then returning half of the funds for the student achievement goal back to those schools.
Randy, you say that we have a pilot program basically for the approximately 13 staff who had already submitted plans for an SLGE. Is that now closed off, so we're not accepting any more applications, or is that still
Correct.
something people can do?
Yeah, at this point that has been closed, so we're no longer accepting those applications. We did want to honor the opportunity for staff to still participate in that, and as we look at models that tie student achievement to teacher evaluation, this is just a great opportunity for staff to explore goals related to student achievement in their classroom.
I think this is one of the struggles that we have with a statewide initiative like this, where locally we had a very creative creative opportunity we had created, and it was approved and supported by both the Edina, Minnesota, Education Minnesota, Edina, and the school district to do this challenge side and to explore this. This is definitely the way the evaluation model looks at the state level, and yet when we come to compliance, MDE is holding us back, and so we, again, Rob Gardner's in the audience, was a big part of the solution around this, so we did come up with something that will work, but I think both parties are a little disappointed that we couldn't have flown our own direction on this as we had planned last spring. This is a good solution in the middle, but again, it's a little disappointing, I would have to say.
So did MDE say why they didn't like the plan that we put together?
The one part was they didn't want this SLGE component to be optional for staff, so that some would participate from a pilot standpoint and others would not. They wanted everybody to do it, and we were at a position in this point of the year where that just wasn't possible.
I want to thank the alt-comp team, all the people who participated in looking at the solutions, and I appreciate what looks like a very creative opportunity, in spite of the fact that we weren't able to do it all with the present MOU. We still have this opportunity to pilot an enhanced SLG, and would love to hear an update to the board, at the end of the year as to what the outcome was for the teachers who would like to participate with it.
We can certainly do that.
Thank you, Randy. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of approving the MOU for the alternative compensation program, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, we have integrating the Edina Community Center into the 10-year alternative facilities funding plan. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to integrate the Edina Community Center into the 10-year alternative facilities plan. Any discussion, background? Had a presentation on this earlier. Margot?
Back in May, when we approved the 10-year plan, part of that approval was that Finance and Facilities would continue to discuss the Edina Community Center and what options we had available to us. And so we have worked with district architects. We also had a work session this evening to evaluate long-term maintenance versus new construction, existing usage scenarios, partial demolition and impact, available land within the district, and any other pending district challenges. And based on that research, the recommendation of the administration and the Board Finance and Facilities Committee is that we do integrate the Edina Community Center into the 10-year plan and maintain our investment in this building.
This, and also this motion incorporates it, but we haven't assigned any dollars or estimated cost at this point of what dollars will be invested in the building over the next 10 years, but that is part of the plan.
Correct.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the incorporation of the Edina Community Center into our 10-year alternative facilities funding plan, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Next up, we have scheduled review of policy 506, student discipline. We've seen these before. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any updates since we saw this last?
Some very minor word changes as we were going through with a policy of this length, changing some is's to ours and us to thus, but nothing major.
Thank you, Kathy. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving scheduled review of policy 506, students discipline, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is approved. A scheduled review of policy 509, students resident enrollment. And a motion, please?
Moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded to approve the review of policy 509 and the amendments. We've seen this before. Any major changes since we last saw it?
No, although we need to make one comment. We've changed the title to resident enrollment and assignment, and in fact, I think
Because this is the way it moves forward.
okay. All right, then the title will be changed, so.
Okay, we'll accept it as a friendly amendment.
And this does shift due to our enrollment capacities at the middle level of where Highlands, the middle school that will become the primary location for Highlands will be Southview Middle School. We did have communications out to those families prior to the board acting on it. We did not receive any formal input, feedback, I should say, back. We also were engaged with the Highlands Leadership Council so that they were aware of this change. And we'll continue to work with those families as we implement this policy, which will begin formally next school year.
Right. So we first discussed this back in August and then held it open and didn't bring it back for action so that we had a chance to work with the Highlands community so everyone was aware of those changes.
Additional discussion? All those in favor of approving policy 509, students enrollment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, we have the schedule review of policy 513, students promotion, acceleration, retention, and educational program design. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Anybody would like to comment?
Again, just mainly small cleanup changes.
Anybody else have any comments? All those in favor of approving the schedule review of policy 513, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, we have the schedule review of 200 series policies. School board, can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. We've seen these before. Anything anybody would like to point out or comments?
No, nothing major again, just a little cleanup.
All those in favor of approving the schedule review of the 200 series policy, school board phase 1, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, we're going to rescind policies in the 200 series, school board phase 1, throughout the old ones. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. We've seen this before. Any comments?
Just, this is pretty much the same. It's just moving things and consolidating things and making it more efficient.
Additional questions, comments? All those in favor of rescinding policies in the 200 series, school board phase 1, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, we have rescind policy 511, students early kindergarten admission. Please signify, can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
This has been folded into 513, so again, it was a way to consolidate and have fewer policies.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you to the policy for all these items that have been updated and edited. Lots of work. Any additional discussion? All those in favor of rescinding policy 511, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And we're taking a look at the schedule review of the 200 series policies. This is school board phase 2.
No, we forgot.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, we got.
Oh, we got our addition.
Additional one.
Thank you. Our partnership, move to approve our partnership with Stanford University. Can I have a motion, please?
Moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Anybody want to touch on this little background? Randy?
We have a great opportunity to partner with Stanford University on an online course that they offered called Designing a New Learning Environment. This course is open to staff, students, to anybody really in the world who would like to participate in redesigning what education can look like in the future. We contacted Stanford University to see if Edina school system could partner with them because we're going through a similar process. We are doing a secondary academic program study, and we are doing this visioning exercise of trying to determine what do Edina Public Schools look like in terms of secondary programming in 2015 and beyond. Stanford University is excited about the opportunity to partner with Edina and vice versa. And so what we are proposing is a partnership with Stanford University. What they would do is they would put the challenge out there as part of their course around redesigning what Edina's secondary academic program could be in 2015. So what's fun about that is it's an authentic challenge for the members or the participants of this course. And in a way, it's like crowdsourcing a topic that we are studying, and we can use people from around the world and their input to help us think bigger, think outside of our box here, and create something really unique and special for the next generation of Edina students. So we are asking for action around this partnership. It's free, it's a no cost, it's a no obligation, but in the end, they'll send us the best designs that come out of the work that's done for this course.
Thanks, Randy. Any additional discussion?
Randy came and presented this to the Teaching and Learning Committee, and we were blown away in a sense that this was an opportunity where we couldn't see any downsides. And the chance to partner with Stanford is something not to be missed.
Additional discussion? All those in favor of approving the partnership with Stanford University, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we're on to our discussion items. First item is the schedule review of 200 series policies, school board. Who wants to go first?
Take it away.
This is a continuation of the review we've been doing on the 200 policies. Most of this is cleanup and consolidation, just for a little bit of clarity. There are no substantive changes at present. Much of the language that is in each of these policies is from statute.
And the only additions that we made had to do with electronic ability that we have now that we didn't have when these policies were written, in terms of the posting for meetings and minutes and that kind of stuff.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments? Next up, we have rescind policy 207. Who wants to take that one?
It's just because we did such a good job on 205, 206, and 208 that we were able to squeeze 207 in those three, and we can get rid of another one.
Excellent. Any other comments, questions? And any announcements?
Just, again, tomorrow I'll be sending the Unite Edina 273 a memo on behalf of the board. Just, again, thanking them for their presentation at the September meeting and letting them know that at this time, we're not going to be responding. They had asked for 3 different points that the district respond to. And at this point, to where we are in the process, that they have delivered their petitions to the Hopkins School District, we think it's premature to move on any of the requests they made. They'd made a request about doing some work on some analysis of the student enrollment and the data that they'd collected, that we would continue discussions between Edina administration and the Hopkins on a mutual agreeable solution. We are having discussions with Hopkins administration on an ongoing basis, but I don't think we're looking at that solution phase at this point because of the status of the actions occurring. And finally, that we would seek a statement of support to detach from, for their petitions as far as them detaching from the Hopkins School District. And again, it's not a position that the district's going to take. We're going to follow state statutes, what our council's recommending, and this was reviewed by the policy committee of the board. And we'll be sending them a letter again, staying engaged with them throughout and keeping that dialogue going. We're continuing to have dialogue with the Hopkins administration, so we're aware of the process. We know that it's going through the committee process at the Hopkins School District right now, and then they'll be moving into public hearings. We'll continue to track that all the way along. But in the best interest of the district, I do think this is the right position to be taking, and wanted to make the board aware of correspondence that we'll continue to have with Unite Edina 273.
Thank you, Rick. Any other announcements?
I do have a book for the board, a little reading time. We continue to work on our work on All for All and understanding all of our students. We've got a book around racial equity, The Other Westmore. It's a great read. It's a story of 2 different Westmores and who lived in the same community and yet had very different endings on how they proceeded in their life. And it's just a good read that many of our staff members are reading, and thought the board might enjoy taking a read on that as we continue our understanding and training on making sure All for All is success for all.
And just to comment that the author of that book, the one Westmore, will be at the University of Minnesota Ted Mann Auditorium on October 30th at 7:30 p.m.
That is correct.
Any other additional items? Someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adjourn. Any objection to adjourning at this time? Seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you all.